Hi everyone, in this video I'll be showing you how to do chess notation so that if you go to, let's say, an in-person tournament, you can write down your notations and then you can analyze your game later using for example, an analysis board. The one I'm using is Lichess, the Lichess analysis board. So I just set up a board here, as you can see, and I'll be teaching you about all the different notations. So right now, let's start with the king. The king is currently on e1. Let's say it wants to move to f2. We can see that it's f2 because of the marking f2. So let's move it to f2. And in the notations you can see that it says kf2. The k stands for king, because if we just wrote f2, anything could have gone to f2. Like, let's say the queen was over here, okay? If the queen was over here, the queen could have gone to f2. But we write k to symbolize king, for king going to f2. Okay? Now let's try the pawn. So I have a pawn here on d7, and let's say it wants to go to d5 to attack the bishop. You would just write d5 because it's a pawn. It's not an important piece, so it's not worth really writing anything down. Now let's try the bishop. Let's say this bishop here wants to escape from the attack of the pawn, so it wants to go to d3. But however, there are two bishops that can both go to d3 right here. So how would you write that this specific bishop goes to d3? You would write bishop c d3. The reason for that is if you go back one move, you can see that the bishop is currently on c4. So bishop c, the bishop on the c file, to d3. That's this move. I'll give another example later of what to do if they're both on the same file, like both on the same this. But for now, let's just go with that. Now, let's move the knight. The only problem is that the word knight starts with a K, but we already used K for the word king to symbolize king. That's why when you move the knight to, say, c6, it's called nc6, knight to c6. Alright, let's try the rook now. Let's say our rook wanted to move to g1. I think you can guess it's rook to g1, rg1. So now let's try the queen. Now the queen has a lot of spaces it can go, but let's say it wants to go to f6 to attack the king. We would write q f6 or queen f6. And since it's a check, you would write plus, queen f6 plus. For example, now if our king wanted to go to g3, take a guess at what the notation would be. I'll give you guys 5 seconds. It would be K G3, capital K to symbolize king. Now let's try another example of a check. So let's move this rook here to check the king. There are two options we have, but let's go rook to G8 to make it simpler. Rook to G8 check. So now, as you can see, it's R to G8 and a plus, the plus symbolizing check. But that might leave you wondering, what happens if it's a checkmate? Well, let's try it out right now. Let's go king to h3 to escape the check, kh3. And now let's move this queen to h6, because if we go to h8, the bishop can defend. So let's go to h6. Queen to h6, hashtag. The hashtag symbolizes checkmate, since the king cannot move anywhere, and none of the pieces can protect the king. Let's reload the page so that we go back to original starting position. How about castles though? Because castles, you can't write king to c1 and rook to d1 in the same line. That would just seem awkward. So let's start with a queenside castle. If you notice in a queenside castle, the rook has to travel 1 square, 2 square, and 3 square. to go to d1. That's why you have 3 circles. It can help you remember it that way. Since there are 3 circles, the rook travels to d1, 3 squares, and there are 3 circles. Now for a for a kingside castle, wait, the bishop's in the way. Let me just move it. Okay, for a kingside castle, oh yeah, and see once again, bishop on from c to d3, bishop on the c file to d3. Okay, now for the kingside castle, the rook must move 1 square and 2 square. So we can guess that there will be 2 circles with a dash between them. So let's check it out. And as you can see, for kingside castle, it's once again 2 circles with a dash between them. That's kingside castle. So, now let's set up a position in which both the pieces, let's say 2 rooks, are on the same file. So let's go to Tools, Board Editor. Let's clear the board. Put a king here, 2 rooks on, 2 rooks here. We'll remove this one. And let's say 2 rooks here. An analysis board. So now, as you can see, we have 2 rooks both on the same file. But if we wanted one of the rooks to go to h5, it's pretty obvious because even if we just write rook h5, there's only one rook that could have gone to h5. And that being the rook on h2. So there's no need to specify rook on h2. But now let's try if they're both separate and let's say this one is on the 8th section and we want it to go to h4. So let's go to the analysis board. So now we have one rook on h8 and the other one on h1. And one of them needs to go to h5. So let's see what happens if we take the rook on h8 to h5. We have rook 8 to h5. That symbolizes that the rook on h8, the number, goes to h5. The reason they don't use rook on the h file to h5 is because there's another rook on the h file. There's 2 rooks on the h file. But since they're both on separate numbers, in this case we'd use the number. However, if they're on separate numbers and separate columns, let's see here. Wait, let me set up a position like that. Let's take this bishop and we'll put this bishop. Let's move this bishop here. Actually, no, let's move this bishop here. Both of these bishops would be on separate ranks. So this one is on the G rank with number 4, and this one is on the C rank, number 2. But now what if we wanted to go to f5? Let's take the G bishop and move it to f5. It's bishop from G, the G column, to f5. So we always take the column first. However, if they're both on the same column, using this example, we would take the number. As you can see, rook 8 to h5. Okay, I think that covers majority of it. There might be a few things like an en passant. So let's try that now. Let's say that we have this scenario, a Sicilian, and we go e5. It's not a very common move, it's pretty unorthodox, but it's fine. Let's say they go for f5. As you can see here, we can go for an en passant. And you can see e captures on f6. Because, for example, let's say they played something like this and we played g4. Now if they do this, there are 2 pieces that can capture the pawn. One regularly and one using an en passant. So we would write e captures on f6, even if it's just one piece. Because right here, if they do this, then we write e captures on f6 to signify that it's an en passant. So I think that covers pretty much most of the rules. We covered the king, the queen, the bishop, the knight, and the rook. We covered the pawns, we covered en passants, and we covered castling. So we covered this, and we covered this. We also covered all the pieces between them. We covered the pawns, we covered en passants. And the one thing I did not cover is captures. Okay, let's say there's a pawn on d5 and we can capture it. Let me reload the page so that it's not confusing here. We have a pawn on d5 which we can capture. We would write e captures on d5. The pawn on e4 captures the x to signify captures on d5. Let's take something that's not a pawn, a queen. Q captures on d5. So that should clear up any thoughts about captures. But what if it's a capture and a check, or a capture and a like checkmate? Now let's go to the board editor and set up some position, which it's like that. We'll have the king here. We'll have the king here. We'll have a queen here. No, let's move the queen here. And then we'll have the opponent's rook right here and our rook over here with white to move, white to play. So let's do analysis board. And now the first move, the one that's capture and checkmate, is rook captures on a3. So we would write rook x a3, rook captures on a3, hashtag for the checkmate. Okay, let's set up a position where it's not let's go back here. What if we take with the queen? It's not a checkmate, it's just a check. Then we got queen captures on a3, q x a3, queen captures on a3, and a plus for check. Now let's take some of the less likely things, but still not impossible. Let's take castle's checkmate, for example. We have the queen here, king here, rook here, and king here. Let's go analysis board. Wait, I forgot to enable castling. White can long castle. Alright, analysis board. So let's say we long castle checkmate. It's just the castles with a hashtag at the end of it. So it's pretty simple. What if it's a castle's check? Same thing. This time, I'll just put a rook here, king here, and black king here. Okay? White can long castle, analysis board, and castles. It's castles with a plus. Castles check. So, in all, that's pretty much how chess notations work, and that should help you figure out how to write chess annotations the next time you go to any in-person like tournament or any in-person games. So, yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, you can ask me. And yeah, thank you.